don't forget our list of people to be praying for. I see Mike is here, but we still have the McGee's and Bob Wheeler. Oh, who asked me to?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
We made a mistake in the chat today, or yesterday. Bob is in St. Francis Hospital. He's not in St. John's. He was still there as of yesterday, and spirits were good, and that's just about right now all I know. But he had no broken bones and no fractures from the fall, so that's very positive. So I just wanted to share that, because it's not St. John's, it's St. Francis.
Can he have visitors or?
No, not now. Wheeler? But still send cards to the house, like we put the address on them.
Yeah. Mike, do you want to make an announcement about Father's Day?
All right, I try to be the nice guy and ask for volunteers, and I want to get a little tough. If I call you and ask you to talk about your dad, you better say yes. And it's only going to be 3 or 4 minutes. Most of my dad passed away years ago, and probably a lot of it is their eulogy, their funerals. So all you got to do is dig around and find your eulogy. We're talking about 3 or 4 minutes. Hopefully it's a fun story. We did have dads for World War II, big depression, a lot of good stories out there. And I think the class would like to hear some of them. And we might have 10, 12 people talk, so think about it and call me if you can. If you don't, I'll call you. Thank you.
Okay, the golf outing.
Hello. Okay, we have 28 golfers so far. And it doesn't matter your handicap level. We would like everyone to come out to Bailey Ranch. And I have a sign-up sheet here. And the pro is going to do the foursomes, so you won't be playing with your hubby or one. Probably. So it'll be a fun day. It's June 27th, Monday, at Bailey Ranch. Key-off time is 1 o'clock. And box lunches are available at 11:30. 4th of July.
4th of July, which is a Monday this year. Sign-up sheet's right there. Here, make sure everybody's
Sign-up sheet's right there. It's $10 a person and
$12.
Oh, I'm sorry.
$12
$12 a person. Right. $12 a person. Meals, dessert, and drink is provided, and bring a chair or a blanket to sit on, and hope everybody can come.
And
At 7:30.
7:30, we need 10 salads, we need 10 veg, no dessert. We're taking care of that this year as a part of your $12.
Okay.
Check only, no cash.
Sign-up sheet's right there.
You mentioned adult beverages. Adult beverages will be available.
And carpool if possible. Okay, I have one more announcement. Keenan sent me an email last week about the Circle Theater. And he found out that we can rent one of the theaters at the Circle for $650, and if we want, we can have Amazing Grace shown at that time. And it's more than just the story about the man that wrote Amazing Grace. It's a story about abolishing slavery in England. So I want you to, I thought I had sent Kathy an email, but evidently it's one of those things, I sent it to somebody, but evidently it wasn't Kathy. The funny thing is, I got a thumbs up. I have no idea. Anyway, so think about that, because that's something, and it's something we can do. We can do it in the afternoon, we can do it on the weekend, and the weekday, evening, because most of us are available, some of us are available. So that would be something, and we could invite some of the other part of the church. So we'd have to be careful because those theaters aren't very big. So, okay. And I think that's it. Anybody, anything I've forgotten?
Question about the law crisis Thursday night, about how are we supposed to meet over there?
Thursday night.
I had no idea.
If you just look for a group, somebody will be there early, and you just find the challengers where they're sitting. It's not that big of a space, because it's over there, right, the polo and all that. So when you get there,
Just so that everybody knows what you're.
it was in the newsletter yesterday. It's a pop-up, and it's, music, and it is on, Tammy help me, or one of you help me. What day?
Thursday.
This Thursday.
It's Thursday, 7 o'clock,
16.
you need to get there early.
Right.
Get space, and it's actually not by Polo Grill, it's across from Queens and Joseph Banks. Right.
Oh, the
And
website.
Restoration Hardware.
No, the website said this year it's down by Polo and Raleigh here.
Well, that's not where they set up for Thursday night. It was by Queens and by Stone Forest.
Okay,
So I don't know, that's where they were setting up.
I'll do this and then, okay, real quick. Let's take time. As you said, a committee meeting. If it's not over there by Polo, I will send out an email.
But they'll see it. I mean,
Yeah. And just look for the challengers, you'll see us. We're a noisy group. Back or the front? You'll just see us, yeah. We won't have a sign or anything. As far as I know, I didn't plan it, but, okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to make an announcement? Okay. I'm really happy to see so many familiar faces coming back at 9:45 that weren't here at 9 o'clock. So I'm happy you're all here. It's nice to see you. Okay, I don't think we have to introduce Bill. Everybody knows Bill. So we're just going to let him go ahead.
Make sure I'm wired for sound here. Is that on? Okay. Well, first, a disclaimer. Relative to the title, what I'm going to talk about today, I've always liked this title, but in the late 1990s, an investment banking firm based in Minneapolis called Piper Jaffray introduced a TV series of ads called Guides for the Journey. And I was in management for them, so we all got to go up and watch and listen to the first one. And I thought it was great. So I don't know how long it ran, but filed that away in my mind. And in thinking about a topic for this morning, I went through my stuff and there it was again. So I'd like to introduce how I intend to do this. So because it involves you. This is not going to be a lecture. This is going to be a Socratic method of teaching, and I'm going to call on you, or ideally you're going to volunteer. And we're going to have a good old-fashioned discussion and not worry about the clock. So let me begin by just saying this question at first. Who can tell me who was Tenzing Norgay?
Sure.
Okay? Speak up. Who was Tenzing?
We got it. We told each other we got it. We got it.
Okay. Tenzing Norgay was what's called a Sherpa, which is a guide that took climbers up Mount Everest. In those days, they didn't even have oxygen. They did have the goggles, but they grew up in that part of the world. And Tenzing Norgay was the guide that took Sir Edmund Hillary to the summit of Mount Everest. So that being said, I'll come back to, so what does it mean to be a guide? What do guides do? But to kick things off, we all have guides. Who were some of your earliest guides?
First of all, your parents, for sure.
Parents, for sure. One more than the other, or both together?
I'd say both your parents. That's who first
Okay, mine too. Anyone else? First guides?
Sunday school teachers.
Sunday school, we got parents.
My first grade teacher.
We got teachers, my first grade teachers. Let's have some more guides. Coaches, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, the last one to talk always wins. Mine was kindergarten teacher.
Kindergarten teacher, yeah, started early with you. Coaches, how about children? And we've got teachers and friends. If you have friends that function as guides, employers. So from that, I'd like to talk about different sort of stratas of where we might find guides. So some are more obvious than others, but let's begin with political. Who can name some? I warned you, they don't have to be contemporary.
John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King.
Okay, perfect. Dwight Eisenhower. Okay, we have a long history, so George Bush. Abe Lincoln, for sure. Still a big deal.
I just watched the PBS special about things that been on Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin.
And
I would say
then
some
it
of the
also,
first ladies.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Who would you say, going back in time, you want to start with Dolly Hammett Madison, or? Okay,
Suffragettes and all that.
okay,
You would have
absolutely, power behind the throne. Name another couple first ladies that were really leaders. Eleanor Roosevelt would certainly ascend to the top tier.
Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton.
Okay, all right. Betty Ford, that took on some tough topics. Okay. How about professionals in different arenas? Some professional this, professional that. Anything pop into your mind? Or
When I was youth director or senior pastor.
who's that?
My senior pastor when I was a youth minister,
Senior pastor. Okay.
so he was my boss, but also a mentor.
Okay.
and if you look at where Martin Stringer in my office, which was my first office that I went to, was called a firm called McKinney Stringer and Webster. And Martin Stringer was one of the primary partners, obviously. And he served that purpose for me for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Spock influence.
Pardon me?
Dr. Spock.
Good point.
Parents.
Yeah. Think of, we're talking about professionals, think about Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers.
Captain Kangaroo.
And for us boys, there are Three Stooges. Okay. All right, how about in the arts? Think about over the years. Mozart for sure. Da Vinci for sure.
Elvis.
Very influential. Okay, I'm looking around, other stuff. Paparazzi. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Little Richard.
What did he say?
Little Richard. Little Richard said he put the rock in my
That's right. He could tickle them ivories. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Carol King.
Carol King. I like it. Yeah.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
John Denver. Yeah.
Charles Schultz.
Charles Schultz, boy, then our face every day for years. Yeah.
Bob Dylan. That's a good one.
Who's that?
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, right downtown in Tulsa.
McCartney.
McCartney, for sure. Great lyrics. Pardon me?
The Beatles.
The Beatles, yeah.
The monkeys.
To tap in,
Leon Russell.
Leon Russell, up on the time bar. Yeah. So you get going on this stuff and you kind of get introspective about people that have been your guides, and we're going to discuss that some more. Let me ask you a tough question. When you look back on your life, can you think of any not so good guides that maybe took you off the path for a while? You don't have to admit what the guide was or what you did, but were there any people that had influence at some point in your lifetime that now you look back and you go, that wasn't so good? So,
High school friends.
high school friends, peer pressure.
Friends, period, they can take you both directions. And we see that every day.
Okay.
Employers for women in the early 70s and 80s were very influenced.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly, my father.
Okay. Okay. Keep thinking. This is an open mic here for a while. So, here we are. So, who by name would be our greatest guide ever?
Jesus.
I think Jesus. Yeah, Jesus. So I want to develop that just a little bit. Give me some examples of how Jesus chose to guide. By example, give us an example.
His stories. He's
By
a
his story.
storyteller. and that
He's a
is-
great storyteller. Okay, and how did he tell his stories? Because he had a particular parables. So let's pause for a minute and think about Jesus's parables. Let's think about several. And I'm going to call on people at random, even though they want to be called on. Linda, can you think of a parable that would speak to this topic? Parable of the name. The parable of please, I don't want to do it. Pardon me? Okay, prodigal son. Let's talk about the prodigal son.
It was an example that people could relate to because it was talking about a father and two children.
Yeah. Say more. Prodigal son.
Well, the one son that left and took his inheritance and went off and squandered it, got to the point where he was eating out of the pigsties and eating the same thing the hogs were eating, and realized what a mess he'd made out of his life and came back. And of course, the other son then, who had been there and toiled and done the right thing, was very upsetting for him to see him get the robe and the big fatted calf and everything.
So, what's the message, the principal message of the prodigal son? Forgiveness. So, let's list that. Let's have another parable of something Jesus taught, one of his main messages.
Good Samaritan.
I like it.
Those are the two most popular.
I agree.
By far, yes.
So, Mike, in the case of the Good Samaritan in Jesus' teaching, and if we can agree, he's talking about the kinds of virtues he would like to see us manifest. What virtues does that parable highlight, underline, bring to the top?
Empathy and kindness.
Compassion.
Love for your brother.
Yeah, love for your brother.
Everyone matters.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness, yeah, lots of the virtues.
Well, I think that one also, oftentimes the greatest gifts to others comes from people who are totally unexpected, not the ones who have the stature and status in society, but those who do not necessarily look like they would be the folks who would be the most generous contributors.
Yeah.
Jesus liked to do kickers in the story. Having a Samaritan be the good guy is the kicker in the story, in other parables. So that was a different
Yeah.
approach.
Inclusive.
I think
I don't
also,
like that word, but I mean, it certainly is the word of the day.
I think also the fact,
When I say kicker, I mean the person, like I said, that you would not expect. Here, the Levite priest walked by, folks that should have done it, but it's the outcast
Mhm.
that shows mercy. And the lepers, the one who returns,
Mhm.
is Samaritan. So he-
And the Apostle Paul was, think of him as a guy that,
So he kept them on their toes.
yes,
I think it addresses prejudice too, which we all, we have in some intrinsic way,
mm-hmm,
that there's no one out there that we're better than they are, or that we can't help, or we're not too good.
right.
That's the message too for me, is
Yeah, it's a good message.
tax collector.
Think about the Sermon on the Mount for just a minute as one of the other events that drew thousands of people to hear the message. And here's a question for you from left field. I like to mess around with words. So they talk about the attitudes being the main thing he was talking about in Sermon on the Mount. So I'll ask you this question. If you turn those two words around, and the topic was attitudes of being, what do you think he was talking about? What were his 2 or 3 main attitudes that he was wanting to underline in the sermon? Or what was
Sins of attitude.
Pardon me?
The sins of attitude. I suffer from the sins of attitude. Christ came and he demonstrated love, gentleness, humility, patience, forgiveness.
Yeah,
Attitudinal sins.
I agree.
So, I suffer from those, not from what he wanted me to be, but from anger, intolerance, patience.
We all do. We're surrounded by it. So, yeah, I agree with that. So, as you read through this stuff, I mean, I'm intrigued with the whole concept of parables. It's a great way to teach. And I think my personal opinion on the parables is that it made it easy to understand. And he took things from here to here and brought them together and in such a way that it was understandable and rememberable. Before a lot of stuff was written and published, we had poetry. And I think for the same reason, poetry is easier to remember than a speech or essay or something along those lines. So I'm going to keep going, but let's pause for a minute. And on this topic of guides for the journey, since we've been discussing, have any other thoughts, personalities popped in your head we should hear about? Any other examples that are, I would say, really good contemporary examples?
Chester Cadell.
Pardon me?
Chester Cadell.
That's a really good point in this church. Someone who did it. Yeah.
How about scout leaders?
How about,
Scout leaders
good point. Yeah.
and neighbors.
Neighbors. Yeah. Growing up in the neighborhood. Guys. Okay. Pardon me? Yeah.
I'm not sure we have the same kind of neighbors, at least that we had years ago.
Well, you said on the front porches are gone.
Yeah, when we were kids, we knew anything we did up and down 2 or 3 blocks, our mother was gonna find out about it.
Which was true, but not my mom.
The church, my grandparents' church community,
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, when you go visit, I mean, surrounded by the
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm not talking a lot, but that is very precious.
Okay, I'm staying on the same subject, but I'm going to bring it right up to the moment. So this is a, we call it pivot. Going back to last week's sermon about wanting a multi-generational church, which I define as people like us, then you got middle-aged people, and then you got younger people. And I think David is looking at the whole picture and sort of saying, we've got this covered really well, and we've got this covered pretty well. So, in your opinion, to pull this deal off, what age group do we especially need to attract to Harvard Avenue Christian Church? Yeah. Give me an age group.
Probably 25 to 35.
25, 35, maybe 40, okay, with children. Okay. Okay. So what attracts those people to a church? Or think of a local church that has been successful in making that happen, and how do they do it? What were the blocks?
Good youth programs.
Youth program. Mm-hmm.
Like attracts like. So you gotta, like attracts like.
Yes.
You gotta have
Well,
young.
what gets them in here to begin with?
People inviting them.
Yeah, there's people inviting them.
Activities, you want as a parent.
Activities.
I think it's pretty obvious that when you look at the competition,
Yeah.
the music has changed. It's a different environment than what we grew up in or what we are comfortable with and worshiping in. And I
Mhm.
think without the marker as it adapts somewhat to some of the things that younger people like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different. Yeah, Rob.
It seems to me that the churches that have blown up are ones that they attract the kids first, and the parents want to go where the kids are, and then the grandparents want to go where their kids are. And you become a multi-generational church if the children are there, and that's the place their friends are going, so the parents follow them. When we moved to Edmond from Oklahoma, my parents let my little sister, who was a ninth grader, pick the church. And it was the one that had the most kids in her class at school to go to. That's the church mom and dad went to, that's the church we went to. And if you looked at it, it was one of those. Yeah, there was a disciples church as well in Edmond. And all of the Baptist church in Oklahoma was where the kids were. So that's where the parents were, and that's where the grandparents were, because they all want to be with the younger generation wherever they are.
Okay.
It's harder to say you want to be with the older generation, but it doesn't mean you don't want the older generation. It just means that the kids are kind of the driving force for the family, is what it seemed like to me.
So what if I say, I totally agree, and then I look back on my own history in the churches, and I think, so I'll say this, and then help me fill in the blanks. What kids that age like, how if I say it this way, is neat stuff. So how do you fill in that blank as far as action? Where do you begin? And then again, think about churches that have pulled it off.
Activities.
Activities, like, for example,
Ski trips.
ski trips, okay?
I think somebody mentioned the youth director and youth choir.
I'm having a hard time understanding.
A real good youth director.
A real good youth director.
And youth choir.
Yeah.
Choir.
Yeah, good points both. A real good youth director and maybe a youth choir. Goodness knows we got a choir director that can get people singing. What else?
A focus on youth. It just has to, the whole church has to have that focus.
Yeah.
We've enjoyed being an old church, but we have just gone through a pandemic, and before the pandemic, this church had really changed direction. We had a young minister, we had came and had children here, and this did have a really good young. I remember upstairs in the far classroom, we had a young people's class, young adults class, that had 40 people in it.
Yeah.
And they were 25 to 40.
Yeah.
We need a young guy.
Pardon me?
We need a young guy.
We need a young guide, yeah.
Yeah.
And this kind of piggybacks on what go Saturday night, we can go to Tulsa Hills, those restaurants are full of families on Saturday night after like church service. So we have to get more relatable for young families.
Yeah, so younger,
So I'm saying like
So-
more flexible in our service times.
yeah, okay, more
Saturday
flexible.
night service.
Okay. My brother's a just retired Methodist minister for an entire career. He always used to say that when you hire a minister, within 5 years, the majority of the members will be 5 years younger or 5 years older than that minister. He said it's over all the denominations, it's the most predictable. So, I think we've got the wherewithal, and I don't think it's Kevin. I think Kevin can do his own stuff and does, and I'm not picking on anybody up and down the line, but maybe maybe it's just a thought, to do a search for a fabulous youth minister. And then around that, start plugging in. I joined and got active in the Methodist Church in junior high. All through grade school, I had perfect attendance because it wasn't an option. But when I hit junior high, it became an option, so it got a little shakier. And then I started getting invitations from other kids at the school that went to, it was called Park Hill Methodist Church. And they had a great, MYF it was called, and they did great trips. And this was in Denver, so what are you doing this weekend? Well, we're going to pile a bus and go up the mountains and ice skate. Yes, sir.
Bill, let me tag on something that Kathy mentioned, and one of the issues, I'm totally in agreement with you, that possibly a youth minister should be considered. The problem with that is you've got to assign the budget to support that. And that means you've got to be flexible, you've got to be creative, something we've never seen in our lifetime or know how to handle. And that's what's happening in schools today is they're teaching different than the way we were taught. We've got to do the same thing with youth here, but that may mean that we have to spend some money to support that in different ways. I don't know how.
I agree.
But the flexibility has got to be important, that we've got to give them opportunities to worship, maybe in a different way.
Yeah.
And a different time.
Going back in time, my personal experience, which I'll inflict on you, but early on, the kids were young, and all of a sudden the magnet was the preschool at Kirk of the Hills. And the kids would go, well, I want to go to that school. It crossed a lot of bounds. It became a real deal to go to the Kirk of the Hills preschool, and it worked. It really worked. So, but they had a really good program. I know we have a vacation Bible school that goes for a while. I think not for the summer, but so anyhow, this is tossed out there as springboarding off last week's numbers, what we would like to see, where we are now, assuming we want that too. Where do we begin? So these are just springboard. I've given it some thought, so has Linda, and we've chatted about it. So anyhow, do the same. Maybe we'll collectively, as a older class, come up with some great ideas for bringing in new people that are younger. You had something to say, Ron?
Yeah, at First Methodist, when the youth program was really began to take off, they built the Youth and Family Center, which was basketball,
Yes.
all that sort of thing. When it was first built, it was pristine. There really, even though there were really cool places for kids to go, they weren't treated as it was their place. It was this really fantastic building with all of these things in it. And when it took off was when they changed it from being something that you and I would think, man, that's beautiful, boy, wouldn't that be fun to be in, that sort of thing, to their place. And you and I might not walk into the same room and like it as well as we did when it was like we liked it. But the kids liked it that way, and they felt like they had some ownership over, and I'm talking about junior high through high school age, not, the small children. I'm talking about the ones when they start trying to develop their own direction.
Yeah, if you can attract the cool kids you've done something really good, so it's possible. Extra thoughts, I'm gonna springboard around here a minute.
Well, I come from pastoring, small, medium-sized churches. I've been in big churches, but I'm sort of struggling with the need here in a larger church, how much input the congregation has in the vision and direction of the church. And I talked to David a little bit about this. So, these ideas are great, but will they be heard and taken into account? Some of you may be, I'm sure some of you are in the leadership group, again, whoever that is. So, I just throw that out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Linda and I love that, we're here because of this class, I think, and we love
this
it.
class is powerful.
Yeah, it is. We love the class, and so we're happy campers. We like the message, and we're pretty satisfied. But if the marching orders are to grow, then we've got other stuff to talk about, and perhaps we can be the leaders in that. Yes?
I was possibly we could aid in this. I know Cornerstone's a big competitor that is very close to proximity here. But I worked with a trainer that she and her at time fiance teamed up with an older couple, and it was a designed program for pre-marriage counseling, and then they have continued that relationship after they got married. So that's possibly some of us participate in the younger people.
Yeah.
Mentoring, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think all of these are wonderful ideas, but I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that after the pandemic, this church is growing again.
That's
I am
right.
seeing a lot more younger people.
Yeah.
Children.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more children in down here. There were no children in our children's wing. It's growing again.
I
So
agree.
it's not.
It's not broken, is it?
We just need to encourage it and make sure that
Keep inviting.
we support this church. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, and our focus needs not to be us, and we need to let our leaders know that we want to see more children.
Yeah.
And then as long as we let them know we'll support a church with a lot of children, I think it'll work. It'll work.
I agree.
Any, hiring David was a good step.
You think?
Hiring David was good.
I don't disagree.
Because he's more like the Life Church where he's not behind the pulpit, he's not in a row, he's more casual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what the young people want. They want to be able to wear their blue jeans and everything casual.
Yeah.
People could do that.
Yes, sir.
The churches that Kim and I serve, like you said, are meeting the small sized churches. And they said, walk in here, you all have fabulous resources. And you do have a family life center, you do have amazing facilities to
Mhm.
use upstairs.
Right.
And so you all have so much going for you compared to just about any other discipleship certainly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you really have amazing resources already.
And for starters, this is just food for thought. We've got a really good elementary school right across the street. So we wanted to do some recruiting of families with kids, smart kids.
One of the other things, I think we have to be ready to volunteer when they ask for help.
Babysit.
Yeah, and the fall and the spring, outing that they have where they invite the whole neighborhood, we have to be there
Yeah.
to take care of the hot dogs or the balloons or.
Good points. Good points.
They shouldn't have to beg.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a teaser. The next time, assuming that the next time I inflict some of my stuff on you, it's going to be on the subject of time. So what I'm going to read you now is a paragraph or two or three from that great religious treatise titled West with Giraffes. So I was cruising along, and I'll recommend that as one of the best books I've read. It'll just come out of nowhere. And this came out of nowhere. This is opening paragraph of chapter 10. I liked it so much, and I copied it and mailed it to a number of clients and friends. And universally, everyone goes, thanks for sending that. That was really good. So I'm just going to read this to you. I hope you like it. And I'll see if I can develop something to teach a class around it. But this will be my summation. I once knew a man who didn't know his own birthday. He was a lucky man. He lived his life each day like... Okay. Is it gone? Okay. That better? Okay. I once knew a man who didn't know his own birthday. He was a lucky man. I lost it. Well, not doing anything different. Pardon me?
Can you take that off? I think the battery's still good.
Oh, okay.
And talk about it.
Okay. How about if I talk this? Okay. Okay. Old fashioned. My funny Valentine. I once knew a man who didn't know his own birthday. He was a lucky man. He lived his life each day like any other, never quite knowing his age, therefore never knowing a birth date's yearly tyranny. I could do without them, thank you, having had many, many more than my share. The thing about birthdays is you're rocking along, drawing breath, living sunrise to sunrise, becoming who you become without a thought put to it, until the day you popped into this world arrives. Then whatever happens, good or bad, you will forever mark it in memory, along with the passage of ticking time, a date on a calendar forcing you to look behind with no way to change things, or to look ahead with no way to know what's coming your way. So, I like that. Two others, which are like sentences. Time heals all wounds, they say. And this is written from the perspective of an aging man who's putting his thoughts on paper. I'm here to tell you, thank you for that. I'm here to tell you that time can wound you all on its own. In a long life, there is a singular moment when you know you've made more memories than any new ones you will ever make. And that's the moment your truest stories, the ones that made you the you that you became, were ever more in the front of your mind as you begin to reach back for the you you deem best. So, travels east, travels west with giraffes. You'll like it. Thank you for your attendance and your attention.
Thank you. We have a few minutes, so don't forget to sign up
Anybody that you know that you want to invite
July.
to join the challenge.
We have a few flyers up here. If there's anybody that you know that you want to invite to join the challenge, or even just to visit, take
The other thing
one
was,
of
I
the
had somebody
pictures.
call
I've
after
got the time
listening to
change
the story
on
about
now, so you're all set.
Center for the
The
Homeless.
other thing was, I had somebody call after listening to the story about
And I was,
the
they
Center for
asked,
the Homeless and their desire to have socks and underwear. And they asked,
but I was thinking
if we could do something as a class, and I don't want it to be in their thing with baskets. But I was thinking if we put a box in the classrooms around these socks box, and you could bring socks and underwear and things like
I
that.
thought somebody said the thing they needed most was socks. Okay, you don't forget the socks.
Oh, I thought somebody said the thing they needed most was socks.
Underwear box.
Okay, you don't forget the socks.